All right. Looks like it's another Tuesday, apparently. Still feels like Monday, I have to say, but nevertheless, it is Tuesday, actually, and 4 p.m. Well, not 4, but
Almost.
4:00. What is it? 6. Yeah, we're a bit faster. Usually it's 10 minutes after, so we're kind of working on this German punctuality thing. Nevertheless, welcome back to another freshly squeezed episode of PKs on Air. I have actually not one, but two. It's it's not only Dominique and I, and that's good. So because we have, we brought some expertise on a topic that we obviously are very keen on, because I mean, events, as you all know, is still a big topic actually. I think in not only in marketing, but specifically for us, of course, in marketing. And go figure, a lot of things changed in the course of was it like last 12, 13? It feels even longer month, but due to the pandemic and the still kind of continuously lasting effects, I would say. I think that's safe to assume. So, like, for those of you that are like not watching from Germany, we just got like our extended lockdown. So yay, things are moving well, not. And therefore, of course, also I think the kind of industry around like digital events and offline events, obviously as well, kind of changed quite significantly. So we asked our very good friend Aleksandra to join us today, so we can kind of get a bit of her view and impression and thoughts, I guess, around like all things events. Because also there was last week we had another of our kind of one of our favorite events, I probably should say, which was SMX in Munich. Well, this time it was not in Munich because go figure, they had to do that virtually as well. But yeah, we had SMX, originally SMX Munich, and that was actually quite good. But I think before we do that, before we get into it, Dominique, how's life in Berlin? You're still smiling. It's Tuesday only, so maybe that's good.
The week is just about to start still. So.
Yeah, so that's why you're still smiling. Okay, fair enough. That works.
Exactly. So everything is going well. I mean, you already mentioned like the current situation in Germany and of course in Berlin as well. So that's not great, but it's also
it is.
Nothing pretty new. It is what it is. But everything is going well. How about you this week?
I mean, as I said earlier when we just started, it feels still like Monday. So I kind of like, I don't know, it's a bit of a weird week, but
yes.
Again, it is what it is. It feels like this, this hamster wheel situation. Like not only the week, but also like months over months. It's somewhat like the same. I think we all of us actually traveled quite a lot in the course of our work, and it just it kind of gets to me a bit. I have to admit, but no, it's fine. All good. Lots of things to do. So, Alex, how is the situation in Prague? How are you guys coping?
I guess it's very similar. So we're not that far from Berlin and overall from Germany.
True. Very true.
And I feel like, that this Corona waves, they just keep moving from Czech Republic, where it's the worst. And then in Germany, it's a little bit better to currently seems like in Germany, it's evolving a little bit worse. And here it's getting slightly on the track of improvement, but really, it's just life as it is, and already getting used to it in some way. Even the weekends get packed with some things to do, where you just get to this new routine. I guess human kind of ability to adapt to any conditions is pretty unique, I guess.
That's true, and I think also complaining doesn't really help us either, right? So it's very true. Very glad that you kind of have the time to join us for, kind of a, I'd say, events-centered chat around like everything and anything that we kind of deem worthy to talk about. Before we do that, I mean, give us a quick rundown. I mean, we met actually, I can't recall, years and years ago when you were still, most people are probably familiar with that, working for SEMrush in one of the kind of leading roles around all things events. But give us a quick rundown on Alex. What do we need to know?
Yeah, well, Alex, that people know from events has been around since 2014 when I started doing event marketing for Veeam software. And yes, then I moved to SEMrush initially, starting with German region. That's when we met. 2016 BK Summer Party. That was the first event.
Wow.
That's been a long time, right?
True. Yeah, that's been a long time.
Yeah, and then kind of moving more towards our global events. And last year, just like a month before Corona hit and all of the mess with contract cancellations for events started, I decided to explore new opportunities and some new challenges, and I found them, given the last year.
I bet.
Yeah. I worked the whole past year with Munich-based company Userlane, helping them set up their event strategy and events as a function already in the virtual reality. And just recently in February, I started with another Munich-based startup, parcelLab.
What's wrong with you in Munich, I wonder? Come on now. This is just right.
It's so close, but it's already more international. So and when things allow, it will be so easy to travel because it's 5 hours by train, and really it was very easy travel last summer when it was actually possible. So things were pretty good.
Yeah, nice. But I can imagine that's with the profession and the kind of speciality of just doing events, I can imagine that was a kind of tough change, right? As you've been saying, when we met for those types of events back in 16, actually, now that you say I recall, but I think after that, which was kind of one of our, it was not this huge event, it was 300 people or something, if I recall, but you've done a ton of really big kind of global events, right? I think that's something that I'm kind of curious to kind of hear your thoughts on, because I've seen that there's, obviously everyone and their mother had to kind of cancel those or kind of change them or move them into very kind of various different ways, right? Some just kind of canceled them. Others said, look, we kind of move all virtual. I think Google was one of those prime examples where they kind of moved to a full digital, event, not say experience, because I think the experience is somewhat a bit different. But so I think everyone had kind of to deal with that a bit differently, right? So how was that for you? When doing events, especially offline events, right? How did that come together? There was a pretty harsh change, I would imagine. No?
It was interesting for sure. Actually, I think the toughest part of it was 1 week that I spent learning broadcasting and all of the things. And I know, Bastian, you kind of work with OBS a little bit, and you know what I mean. So I had to learn all of these programs and also all the virtual event platforms that started appearing, just popping up every week. 10 new platforms are there. They all are a little bit different. And if you consider, at least to me, if you consider yourself event professional, you need to know at least this top 30 to understand what are the pros and cons of each one, what fits different event format, how you can utilize it, what from pricing perspective, and so on and so on. So there has been a lot of learning, which was also nice, I would say, because it was a change from previous years when you just had to keep executing and doing and moving from one event to another, where you actually could stop and rethink everything what you've been doing and take the best lessons and think how you can adapt to the new venue, which is the laptop screen for the majority of people, and how that will look, and all of the other technicalities that usually were not part of the description. I think I was quite lucky in this case, because overall I was always interested in learning how the AV stuff works and being able to navigate it myself, just in case the AV guys can't manage that. So actually, sometimes they were not capable of changing the cable, so you had to step in. Right. But I know that for some events managers, it was tough if you were not ready to work with tech and with different tools. And again, my background was SEMrush, where we were really hands-on with the product and had to know how it all functions. It was very helpful.
And I think also you guys did run like kind of virtual events even before you were forced to do it, right? If I recall correctly, there were some things, and you've been doing like also a huge chunk of like, you know, webinars and like conference types of things way before Corona, right?
Yeah, that's true that SMX as a company did it, but actually my team was focusing entirely on this offline and in-person elements. So even though we would kind of talk, but we would not necessarily be doing that ourselves. So it was a big learning. Actually had a few really good conversations with Anton, who powers all of the SMX webinars, just to pick up his brain a little bit on it. And I must say also a great part of the last year was how the whole event marketing community in particular from the tech companies kind of came together. And within, I think, the first 3 weeks, we got the Slack community going. Now it's more than 1,000 people. And the conversations there are great. Everybody has become so helpful and open to share about their best practices instead of... as opposed to previous times, so kind of doing their own thing and people learning just by observing. Now you can pretty much connect with anyone, ask a question, run the concept by someone also with experience, and it's become very open, very kind of collaborative space, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think this is really like an interesting observation. I think this is like, I feel, and we've been saying that in previous kind of shows as well, like this is especially true because there is so much content being produced, right? And everyone is kind of somewhat like still fighting for the attention, though I think agreed on like it's a bit of this kind of shared experience on and expertise on like which things kind of did work and which things did not work, which beforehand we would go and like you would kind of have this elbow mentality on like everyone is battling for the attention and for the leads in the big expo hall, right? So I agree on that. That's true. So, I mean, maybe to kind of recap for some of you that have not had the chance, because it kind of leads quite nicely into today's topic as well. Like last week we had, as I've been saying, that we had SMX, and I mean, in August last year, what SMX kind of did was like a hybrid show. So I think Dominique, you were there as well, right? So we were present in Munich, and what they essentially did as a format was that there was kind of the attendees had essentially the choice of either going in person or kind of attend by live stream. So kind of all sessions were live streamed. And then interesting point there, and Alex, I'm curious on your take on this. Like they have been using Hopin. I think this is one of the platforms that's kind of a lot of people, a lot of like the conferences kind of are using right now. They use that kind of to feed in like the streams to those that couldn't travel or for other reasons didn't feel like joining in person. So but I think one of the big issues that I have, and then kind of this kind of leads probably into the first question, like I felt there was a huge, I mean, I liked the fact that there finally was a proper stage again, at least for once, but I'm like tired of the screen. I think that's one thing. But like I think what I felt was there was an entire disconnect towards like the audience that was participating virtually at that time. So and I'm not sure if that's due to like just how you approach it in general, or due to the platform, or both of it. So have you seen like any of the more like hybrid event solutions, I would say, or hybrid events in general, where you said, look, this kind of to me looked like it worked really well? And or would you say this is always like a little challenge when you have some here and some there because it's not fully focused on one or the other concept?
Yeah, that's actually a great point that you bring up, because this gap between virtual audience and live audience that are supposed to be a part of hybrid experience, this is the major challenge that everyone needs to figure out, and nobody has so far. Even though like this hybrid has been around as the term for almost for a year. As soon as we pivoted to virtual, everybody started talking about that the future is hybrid. Based on some of the conversations and like even the polls that I did, nobody really believes that the term hybrid and the concept of hybrid event is actually something that is necessarily staying. And that for the audience itself, like it will either be virtual or in person. And hybrid is a kind of more organizational term, meaning that you have to organize 2 events at the same time, but also get the connect between the 2. So I haven't really seen good examples so far. Also, because there is no like strict definition of what hybrid is. To me, it can be that the speakers are all at the broadcasting studio and they have the experience of their own, and all of the audience is streaming.
Streamed in,
yeah, it's streamed in, or there are multiple hubs, and I know like SMX Advanced is planning that in the fall. There are multiple in-person hubs, and they're all streamed to each other, or the speakers are being streamed to the audience in one place from different places in the world. So there are so many options about how you want to go about it. So it feels to me like hybrid will be more of a events manager term when it comes to the
but
audience.
Not necessarily you're right.
It's just the events.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point actually, because I think, but you made one interesting kind of comment about there's it's all somewhat different in a way that you said, like, this is for all the speakers or for like all the audience, or and I think this is actually quite interesting, because what it was for that like SMX event back in the day, it was half, and I feel this was where a bit of the struggle came in, because you had this interaction for those that were in person, and the rest of the kind of group felt left out, if that makes any sense. So I think this is probably and again, it's how you organize it. You're completely right, but I feel like some ways probably work better than others, and I feel like that one, like the mixed attendance kind of thing, did not feel ideal. I don't know, just like that was just my observation. What's funny that you mentioned that is like, and that was like one, I think it was a huge success is hard to say, but there was like New Year's, there was Tomorrowland, and I think I'm a huge fan of that, and I was actually quite blown away, I have to say, on the kind of virtual reality world that they actually built. That was insanely impressive. But what it was simply what you've been saying. So they kind of used all the kind of the artists kind of in front of a green screen, right, and then streamed that to like a virtual audience. I think this makes much more sense than just mixing the audience attendance. I'm not saying it can't be done, but like I think then you need to have a concept in place where how you kind of interconnect them. Kind of curious if that how that's gonna evolve actually.
No, that's exactly the point, because if you leave out the audience that is joining online, you're just live streaming your event, and that's been done before so many times. So you're not reinventing the bicycle here. You're just using what's been done already. So it's about this creating this special experience for your online audience, and then special experience for your in-person audience. And it's up to you how you will mix it up together, or provide parallel experiences that are that are on their own, which is also possible. But you need to think of both, and that's a huge challenge, because you need to organize 2 events in parallel. And when people think about like pros and cons of hybrid, virtual, or in person, the biggest kind of, it's not the cons of hybrid, but just something to be very conscious about, so to say. You have to do 2 events, and it will most likely cost you more than if you decide to go with either one of them. Many people saw virtual like, it's free. Let's all throw in virtual events because they don't cost money. They actually do, and they can cost as much as in person if you do it well. If you hire a production studio, I'm sure like Experiences Tomorrowland was not a cheap one to produce.
No, clearly not. Clearly not. Yeah,
not.
You're right.
Yeah. But it was worth it, right? Because people got great experience. And, there are people who've done it for a long time. Like those people work on TV and all the concert production. So they've been creating this kind of thing for a long time. It just now becomes more of a common practice, and that anyone can basically do it with a given skill set and some budget. Just like some of the other experiences we had before, even flying on a plane. It used to be luxury, right? Right now, anyone can fly on the plane, but sometimes experience is not that good if you fly certain airlines.
Fair point. Yeah, that's a very fair point.
No finger pointing here, but anyways.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like, we're not finger pointing any airlines. Even though I just like, I think that might have just changed quite significantly even now, because I think even like the so-called premium ones are not premium anymore. But I think that's a story for a different day. I think we just need to figure out how that works in 2022, and then we can make up our own judgment on airlines. That's true. But you have so let me follow up on one thing, because I think this is also what people are really curious about. You said, and that's I agree. I think everyone thinks somewhat like running like virtual is somewhat cheaper either way. But I think so. Run us down your kind of thought process when you kind of go about like events in general. So I mean, of course, before and non-virtual, I think it was somewhat, as you said, like it was just executing it. You had your kind of imagine like checklists on certain things from venue to booth to shipping and whatever that is, right? So how do you go about virtual events in general? So is that, I mean, you have a platform potentially that you need to have, but there's probably other things. So how do you approach that just on a high level?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's pretty much similar to the process previously. It's just some of the things have changed, or some of them have been kind of eliminated, like ordering the booth or ordering lots of swag, which right now is being replaced by more either digital stuff, which I actually like because it's more sustainable and gives more value to people that get it, or shipping actually elements still stayed, because by all of the gift boxes that you can do and then kind of add up this physical element to the event, it still stayed. So logistics is still part of the whole thing. But the key to the overall planning is starting with the outcome in mind, and just starting planning with, okay, what do you want to get out of it? And down from the kind of business goals on a higher level. Okay, so how does this particular event affect our ARR by the end of the year? And down then to the building pipeline for sales in this particular quarter, and then thinking about attendee experience. What do we want them to think, to say, to feel when they come out of the event? It's still the same. It's still the experience online. And from the smaller webinar down to kind of multi-day virtual events, it's still the same, just that some of them require less time for production. They still, I would advise at least 2-3 weeks for promotion, depending on the topic, your audience, like your existing database, to like 3, 4, even 5 months to announce your virtual event, just because there is, just like it was like oversaturated space with physical events.
There's a competition for the time. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, all of a sudden it all moved to virtual world, and about 1,000 or more companies also decided to throw virtual events in there. So it's every week there are so many of them. You kind of want to stand out, find these angles that will attract people, and also get on their calendars in advance.
So the kind of the checklist process remains somewhat it's somewhat the same, but just like the items obviously have kind of have changed. So like because I suppose, I mean, I also have seen like a bunch of like different platforms, more from like not from the organizer's perspective, more from the speaker's perspective, obviously. But like because I think that's kind of the majority of like our audience here watching, like when you would kind of need to kind of at least throw out a couple of names on platforms that are worth looking into, like I think not mega platforms, but like somewhat like, from small size, let's say like 100 plus kind of events. Hopin I mentioned, I think this is a platform that also can kind of handle somewhat larger events. Like what other platforms or maybe just kind of approaches would you recommend that people have a look at when they kind of want to run virtual events?
So if we start, let's say, with larger scale events that kind of replicate this in-person experience where you have sponsors and breakout sessions and main stage and so on, Hopin for sure, Swapcard, Socio, Bizzabo, that would be probably kind of my top list. Also Axel events, they are pretty good for this. Then if we Also look at the platform that is more scalable to different types of events, like from your webinar down to larger events. I really like Goldcast. That is
Goldcast. Okay.
Yeah, it's a relatively new one. They started actually last year, but they've been growing really fast, and they focus on like B2B marketers. So from the analytics perspective and the insights they provide, it's pretty valuable. I would probably compare them only to Visible in terms of the analytics.
Okay.
So if it's a big part, if you're not just the producer, but actually as a company, you want to get something out of it for your sales team, that's a good, an important part to look at. And some of the networking kind of events, if you want to have more of this collaboration and maybe smaller audiences, Wonder, they're actually based in Berlin. Pretty cool because you can move around freely, and it's an not curated networking where you can choose with who to connect and build circles. Pretty fun. Rally Video, quite nice because they allow you to hear a little bit of what other people are talking in other breakout rooms. So it reminds this, the sounds of the
kind of the lunch break. Okay,
yeah. So you're not sitting in the silence. It's
interesting.
Yeah, very nice. And Run the World has nice functionality for speed networking, like one-to-one, the rotation, and also quite some fun elements with making selfies and sharing them on socials.
So this is actually a very interesting point that you're making. This is actually one that I kind of would have addressed anyway. So like what I saw, or what I also felt like for especially for this kind of SMX, I think what SMX is really strong with is that like the content that they the speakers that they have and the content that they deliver. So like for people attending, there's always like kind of strong value in terms of like when you attend the talk, you usually get something out of it. So I think this is what like SMX in general, like globally, has usually stood out with. But so what I really miss, like not only from a company's perspective, and we need to talk about that in a second as well, but also from an like attendee perspective, I think, is like this, you just said like networking and connecting. Because so if I kind of go back to last week and I kind of take the 2 days where I attended, like I have not spoken to a single person. Like obviously, right? So I kind of attended the talks and then there were breaks. There was like, how rudimentary the like hop-in networking function is. It's essentially non-existent really. So, or it's not exciting. Let's put it that way, right? This is really problematic, I think, for those that take a lot of value of like just meeting people, talking to people, and not only. And this is the other point, right? Like not only talking to people that you know, but actually meeting other people like-minded in a way, and just have like this non-prescripted conversations, which is just entirely lacking right now. If you meet someone, there's a preset agenda, right? So, have you seen any kind of? Next to the platforms, have you seen any concepts that where you think, well, this is kind of something that can be kind of thought further or should be incorporated in an event? I know that Bits and Pretzels did something like kind of a random type of like networking thing, but like, is there anything else beyond that you have seen?
Yeah, I think actually this part of the networking and creating the element of connection, it's not about the platform. It's about how you will navigate and curate and make sense out of it for people. The problem, for example, that I see with hop-in networking is that why should I go into this Russian roulette of meeting some random people out of 10,000 that are right now on the platform? Like, I don't want to spend my time. I don't want to end up in awkward conversations or silence or something else. So to me, networking happens better if you have really small groups. Maybe you meet like 15 people on a call and then you do some breakout rooms. Better not of 2 people, but because it's also a little bit awkward. Someone has to start, but maybe 3 at least. Like that, you can have this rotation, and it helps people to understand what's like if there is a common interest. Make them short. Let people connect with each other afterwards. Also, keeping the chat going during the event, and that's part of what moderator has to do, helps for people to define the common interest, because someone responds to a question, you see that, oh, that's kind of resonates with me, and you respond to this person in the chat, and then you feel like, oh, maybe we can go into direct messages and or on LinkedIn and talk to each other. So that's another way. And also kind of people, even adults, they really like to play games. So actually rewarding people for connections or for doing different activities during your event is a good way to open up this experience that you created for them. The problem with kind of in-person and virtual that I see, like in person, the attendee had to arrive to the venue, and then if it's a good event, they're being guided through the experience created for them, and they just have to kind of relax, let go, and enjoy. But with the virtual event, you can create amazing experience. But if your attendee gets stuck at the welcome page and does not click on anything else, there's nothing you can do to make them enjoy it. There's nothing you can do to make them connect with other people, even if it's super curated audience. It's like 100% match. There's like 50% responsibility for getting this benefits out of the event. And rewarding with the points or some other, what I like, recently I discovered this idea and I want to use it myself, like reward with points for every action on the platform and like for connecting with other people, and say that either with these points you can get something after the event, like go to swag shop or something else, or that you will, donate it to charity or plant trees or something else. So people feel like they are contributing to something bigger or contributing to something cool for them, but at the same time also going through everything that you've prepared.
Right. So like the gamification, incentivation angle in a way that it actually kind of resonates to the audience. Okay, that's a smart play. Okay, so what you're saying is basically, if I understand correctly, like, the platform was more like the enabler, right? The platform obviously needs to allow it kind of technically, but it essentially comes down to kind of you mapping this journey out and obviously having a kind of incentives and whatnot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you need to have a reason to do something. People are lazy and busy. You're either busy or lazy. So
or both.
Both.
And I think the challenge also is like and this is I think another challenge that you have, right, when you're doing like solely virtual plays, is that you kind of also fighting for the attention, right? Because I mean, like, so knowing myself, like I have a bunch of windows open, I have like a lot of different things going on at the same time, and if you don't like really kind of catch me there, then chances are that I either just kind of half listen or not listen at all. It's just like kind of let it sit in the background, as you've been saying, and then they're not interacting with kind of the experience that you kind of want them to have, really. And then at the end of the day, it's like that was boring, nothing happened there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just because people did not listen. That means you didn't capture their attention. Usually people log in and you have to capture their attention within the first 3 minutes. So you really
that's a relatively short time span. Okay,
you have to go fast. You can't keep going about why this topic is important today. I know it's important. I tuned in to your event to listen about it. Like, don't tell me the generic stuff. To the point, right away.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. So I think another thing, and I'm just also kind of curious on your take on this, like this, because there's so many different kind of aspects to events. I think one of the struggles that a lot of companies have, that I mean, not those that necessarily run like their own events, but like those that are usually, and I think, I mean, you have been in their shoes as well, like as someone having kind of had oversight on a kind of huge booths and kind of stuff, in expo halls, right? I think this is something that with virtual events, well, either didn't exist or doesn't exist anymore, or has kind of changed fundamentally. And I think one of the feedbacks that I've seen a lot in like, at least in our bubble, or like also talking to, let's say, other agency owners, or just like kind of companies that kind of somewhat have the same business model, is that they would say, like, look, I mean, before we had our team kind of in the expo hall, and they're good at what they do. Like, so they're good in interacting, they're good in networking, they're good in, like, you know, as you've been saying with the virtual experience, kind of make them comfortable, get them into a conversation, you know, and then that kind of that take it from there, kind of that would have tied into like maybe the sales funnel at some point. And that's entirely different for virtual, right? So like, I mean, you can have a booth, but like, great. So what then? So is that something that you have, like, discussions that you have kind of witnessed yourself as well? Do you kind of, can you resonate? Would you say like, maybe this is just kind of off anyhow, you need to do something entirely different? What's your take on that, kind of on that angle?
Yeah, well, my take is that the virtual booth on its own doesn't work as in-person booth used to work. Even an in-person event, the best combination would be like to have a speaking slot and have someone from your company or your customer to represent you, and then kind of direct the traffic to your booth. It was part of our schedule. If we had, you know, someone speaking, or we know that the company will be mentioned, then we prepare something special at the booth to be ready for the traffic that will come in, and we were ready to reference to that speech. So you kind of think through that process. Right now, if you don't have a speaking slot, like, you can forget about any attention unless it is a kind of an event rather. Not, let's say, an inbound, but something that is organized by another tech company. Like Gong has done a good job with getting partners on board, because they would partner with companies that are non-competitors, limited number, 3 to 5, and make sure that they direct people to their booths with some incentive, but also there will be speaking slots, again, mentioning that. So it's a whole user journey, basically, that you plan throughout the event with your partners, and that's how it has to be. It's not sponsor anymore; it has to be partner in mind. So unless it is like that, you definitely don't need this virtual booth. Speaking sessions are good right now, especially if the audience is the right one at the event. So this huge events with 20,000 people, there is a high chance that you will be lost on the agenda and not the right people will attend. So it's less and less about the quantity, more and more about the quality right now. And also, if I work always very closely with the sales teams. So for them, with the virtual events in particular, it's a lot about one-to-one meetings. And the events that can do really good job about kind of due diligence about the projects that these attendees have, the executives that have specific targets for this quarter, for this year, what they need to accomplish, and what budgets they have. The more information they can provide you in advance, and based on this information, you can schedule these meetings, the more effective that would be. So like, it has to be more of a shared responsibility now, and event organizers, especially the kind of non-brand ones, right? The ones who own the event, and that's their revenue stream. They have to be even more proactive, understanding what the attendees need, what the sponsors need. It's not anymore get the venue, get the beer, go and network, you know, and get something out of it.
That's the point. No,
the beer is missing. The beer was a kind of a very helpful part of it, right?
Yeah, I think this goes back to like my initial statement of like that the networking, also the non kind of scripted, and I think Dominique kind of had like the same approach. Like this, oftentimes I think what worked really well for us is just like kind of those picking up conversations, as you've been saying, kind of directing traffic from sessions or interactions in any way, kind of towards a booth, and then kind of converted onwards from there, right? And I think this is significantly different, online versus offline, so to speak.
There are less opportunities for this serendipity of events, and it's more about people anyways needing your services right now, more or less, or wanting to meet you as an expert and kind of getting some questions answered. So these are the two chances that you have. Attract either by getting right into the pain point that these attendees have right now. So make sure that you nail down your positioning and highlight everything you can offer to them using the content or everything what you have available, or be that expert. But it doesn't happen just with one event. You have to be building that up, the thought leadership, so that everybody is lining up, even virtually, to ask you a question after your session.
Yeah. No, that's very true. That makes sense, because I think at the end of the day, like as you've been saying, there's so much competition now, and so many events, that if you can't like stand out in a way, then like why would people like even reserve kind of their slot in the calendar, right? There's no sense. So speaking about kind of standing out a bit more, I think, I mean, we all are marketers, obviously. Some more, some less, and some do a bit more SEO, I would say. But hey, no, what I'm saying is, I think is exactly that. Like there's, and you mentioned like kind of advanced planning, which I think is obviously a crucial part. But like, what are your, like when you kind of advising companies on like promoting events? I mean, I think there are some more common things, right? Like kind of email lists, in own email lists, or kind of paid email lists or whatever. But I mean, I think those are kind of the obvious things that you can do. Potentially partnerships, kind of with the right partners that are non-competing. Like what else have you seen works? Kind of, if you can share what works well right now to kind of get this attention, kind of get in front of the right audience to kind of lead into people actually joining the event. Like any other thoughts where you thought like, well, this is maybe worth trying or looking into?
Yeah, definitely organic social and the word of mouth. So it's been working really, really well if you have your employees posting on a regular basis overall on LinkedIn or on the platform where your audience is. Like if they're on Twitter, then go to Twitter. On Clubhouse, then go to Clubhouse. So that's all about the audience, not about the actual platform. And if they're posting regularly and there are people who interact with them, then when they share about the event and share what they love about it, or kind of build up that excitement from behind the scenes, then it works really well, because it's not just this generic ad or the emailing that people receive, but it's like personal recommendation. And if this person, who I overall respect for their professional achievements, and they're saying that it's good, okay, I will check it out. And then if other people who sign up for this event and you turn it into referral programs, they do work for some events, for some they don't. That depends on your audience and a kind of sector. But anyways, if they like their experience when they were signing up, or they're really hyped about some speaker and they share about it, this is like the best promotion, because someone was talking about your event and people kind of go and check it out as well. Communities as well. Right now, kind of the paid communities are on the rise, where there's no fluff, no ads, but just like-minded people talking. If you're already part of these communities and you are actively contributing and helping other people, then if you once in a while kind of share the information that, and hey, by the way, we're running this event here, and we'll be having this speaker, and we'll be talking about it, like check it out. People have trust to you, and they
because you're like established in the community. Yeah, got it.
Exactly. But just pushing it and gonna straight in your face, nobody's gonna sign up because of it. So there has to be, it's a kind of events happen once in a while, but the work to promote them has to be an ongoing task. Like throughout the year, you have to be present where your audience is in order to get them to attend your event.
Right. So, Alex, you mentioned Clubhouse. Dominique, how's Clubhouse going for you? I think you still have a user, right? Or no?
Yeah, I still have some, but I need to admit, it's getting a bit boring during the last days. So during the first weeks, so during the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was super excited about it. Tried to listen to as much as possible, because there were like super exciting streams. But now I think it became pretty commercial, in my opinion.
Is it?
So I was following some people there, and it's not. So for some streams I saw, it's more about talking about their product, talking about the way how they sell something. And I was like, okay, that's not why I'm here. I do not want to hear how you sell your product and why I should buy them, because it's more like an exchange platform, right? And like having like open discussions. So, and there are not that much streams anymore. So I have the feeling, or my impression is that
interesting.
Some people are getting bored as well. But that's just my opinion.
It feels a bit like the events like 10 years ago, where everyone just like was promoting and like there were no quality guidelines in place.
Yes.
This is kind of how it sounds a bit like. Alex,
Definitely.
have you been playing with Clubhouse as well? Did you use it or?
Yeah. I actually and I used it, and with a group of other people, we started rooms about events and all different topics. So it was pretty fun, but it's also like super time consuming, I must say. So I don't know how people like, especially in the beginning, like when it was super this hype in December and January, people were saying like, I spent 5 hours in Clubhouse. Like, what else did you do that day? So I don't know how you're gonna do that. Or one CEO said that he will be firing anyone who has the account in Clubhouse.
That's an interesting take. Maybe we should establish that as well.
That's pretty harsh, but at the same time, if you're spending that much time, I don't know, I can't multitask in such a way that I'm present in a conversation on Clubhouse and at the same time I'm doing the quality work. Like it just doesn't happen to me. You have to be either here or there.
Oh, there,
so, But we try to do one room a week. Yeah.
Okay. 1 room a week. I see. Well, I just wait until it's dead, and then like I haven't missed anything. So
no. I skipped TikTok. I was like, I need to get on Clubhouse, otherwise I'm officially too old. So
fair point. That's another of those that I never really touched. But so let's kind of move a bit like to like a slightly different topic, but like somewhat related still. I mean, similar to us doing now PKs on air. I mean, there's also, I think, a lot of other like stream-like, let's say, shows and scenarios, as well as, and I think this kind of equally had gained a significant more kind of attention is obviously all things podcast or podcasting in general. I mean, again, not really events, but like another way of, let's say, communication and kind of getting your message out. So, I mean, and I think you mentioned like when we started talking that you also have been kind of doing like webinars, obviously, and like kind of, regular appearing kind of shows and whatnot. So what's your take on that? Do you think this is gonna remain, or do you think it's gonna change because there's this oversaturation of content? As well as like maybe people need to do something different. Like what's your thought on that to kind of continue to gain value from it?
It's actually also interesting that events right now, and even when I look at job descriptions, and right now, like I'm in charge of events and experiences, and it includes webinars, events, podcasts, awards, any speaking opportunities, any customer facing kind of activity or whatever we are doing. So it's definitely expanding for many. I think that it will stay. It's just there is always this point of oversaturation, and then the best stays. Like
survive and the rest,
exactly, like if it's a good quality, then it will stay because still people are curious and they want to learn, and they like learning on the formats that they enjoy, may it be video or reading or listening. So, or somebody likes short form, someone still reads blogs, but someone stopped doing that. So you still have to think about all of those, but I think you have to be super efficient. And that's what I like about the change in events in the past year. They've become so much more integrated into the digital marketing overall. Probably because they finally moved online and can be tracked in a more proper way.
I was going to say, right? Like this is an interesting point, actually, right? Like all of a sudden you need to be accountable. You need to be accountable. It's just like spending money on events, and then maybe we see if something converts. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So previously with this offline part, there was a gap, and some companies did better or worse job at tracking that. Right now, still not everybody is tracking, but there is like no excuse anymore for not doing so. And you have to be smart about how you repurpose that content. Okay, you create something at the event, turn it into the audio, edit it, turn it into the podcast, and then into the ebook and on the blog. Or on the contrary, like repurpose something for, let's say you're running an event, but you also had a couple episodes of a podcast with the video recorded. Put it as in kind of always on content during your event. Let people have something outside of the hours of your event being live, but once they registered, they can as well use it there and watch it. So you have to be a little bit more conscious about how everything works together and not just separately think, okay, here we run webinars, here we do an event, and there is a line for the podcast, and you will be getting speakers for everything. It's kind of, when you talk about it, it seems very obvious, and like, okay, of course, that's how we do it.
It's not happening. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I know many examples when it's not happening and when teams are siloed, and like it's just the flow is not there, but it has to be.
So is that kind of your conclusion in a way, that like the kind of the event space is becoming more and more integrated? I mean, not only kind of the individual channels as we've been just like describing, but also like, you know, once we kind of see in-person events again, that, I mean, obviously you try to kind of then use the best of all worlds. Or what was your take on like, how's that going to happen? Like if we kind of fast forward 1 year, I mean, we all don't know, but like let's hopefully assume that this nonsense pandemic at that point is at least in a way that we can have, I don't know, some type of in-person event again. Would you say, yeah, they're coming back? Would they change for good? They're not coming back? What do you think?
Yeah, I guess let's say we take B2B companies, definitely will be using all of it and the best of all worlds, because costs are less than with in person. Just you cut on the travel. Even if you invest in the virtual production, you cut on the travel. So it and the reach, like you get the audience, it's accessible for everyone, it's global reach. So there will be a mix of this. In-person events there will be maybe a couple shows a year that are just a must to attend if you're in the industry. So yes, everybody will go there. And then smaller, very targeted, like niche events up to 100 people that actually provide this element of in-person connection. So I feel like virtual events will be capped for content and learning, because actually you can be more
and reach potentially, right?
You can be more efficient learning when you listen to the session at your laptop with no distraction, with good Wi-Fi, or you're sitting, you know, in the conference room where there is no light and no connection, and you're like crammed into some chair. So you're more efficient learning, but the connection and exchanging the opinions with other people, that's what in-person is for. So there will be more of a purpose behind each of this.
Specifically.
But overall events and the in-person events and like festivals, of course, they're going to be back. Like everybody wants to go to a festival again.
Good point. That is a very strong reason.
I actually think the prices might go up, just because organizers understand that people are ready to pay right now, right? So there's demand and you can charge more. It turns into a little bit more high-level experience, and they can still provide the option for online experience. But if you want to enjoy in person, then you can pay a little bit more. So when I think about the stuff that we could organize and that would be completely for free for everyone to attend, like right now you can charge money for that and people will come just because they're so hungry for this connection. And that's the change that has happened for sure.
That's true.
At least for some time.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there's one very important point that you also made. Is like, I think there's different purposes for like live events in itself depending on the size, because what you can't replace with like virtual is certainly like, you know, those kind of close group 50-ish people kind of events where like it's I think like 90-ish% of that is all around networking and kind of like just meeting people, not so learning in that regard. So I agree. I think this is like an interesting, probably more clearer distinction that we also will be seeing, that we were seeing in the future. Yeah, very true. Fantastic. Well, time's already running out. It's interesting how time flies when you are kind of having fun or a very good conversation, I guess, either way. So very quickly, a couple of housekeeping notes as we have to do them. And I keep it short, but like if you want to follow up on some of the things, pa.ag/notes, we have kind of the each and every recap there, including videos and slides also from previous episodes. We have, I think, some really exciting guests there. We talked about iOS. We talked about PPC changes recently. We're happy to be in kind of content marketing. So broad variety of topics. If you have missed that, shame on you. But then you can still kind of reach out either to us if you have any kind of questions. Happy to kind of follow up on those in person, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you find us. Again, videos on the notes section. And with that, a big thanks, Alex, for spending your hour with us. We highly appreciate that. It was, I think, very insightful. So I think it's really cool, like to kind of see it from like not the like attending and kind of running events from like kind of agency perspective, but rather from like events perspective itself, because I think there's so many different things that you would not see if you're not like as deep into those things as you are. So I'm curious. I think we probably should and need to do a follow-up in the future, just kind of see how some of those predictions come along.
How it works.
I think it's, exactly. You're gonna see how 2021 treats us. That said, thank you very, very much. We are off. We'll be back. Actually, that's a good question. Are we back next week? Yes, we are back next week.
Next week.
With what is, funny enough, already our birthday episode. Crazy how time flies. First full year of PKAs on air. We're going to have some fantastic guests, not only from our very own teams joining us. We also have, for example, Mike King joining us live from New York, and some others that are going to be like a big surprise for those that are dialing in. So don't miss it. 4 p.m. German time next Tuesday. That said, we are off. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.